Hello and welcome back to the Life Fit podcast. I'm your host, Jack O'Halloran, and today I chat with best-selling author and relationship expert, Dr. John Gray. John is the author of more than 20 books, including the bestseller Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. John helps men and women better understand and respect their differences in both personal and professional relationship. His approach combines specific communication techniques with healthy nutritional choices that create brain and body chemistry for lasting health, happiness, and romance. In this beautiful conversation, we cover a variety of topics such as masculine and feminine energy, how to communicate with your partner, instant versus delayed gratification, the skill of balancing hormones, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how to sustain passion, and much, much more. As always, we also share many tips, tricks, and hacks that you can start implementing and practicing today to help you in your journey through life. You can find out more about John and his wonderful work over at marsvenus.com. And if you enjoy what we do here, we'd be grateful if you can share our work and support us in whatever way you can. We are on Instagram at LifeFit Studios or JackO'Halloran_IE. Also on Facebook at LifeFit Studios. And if you'd like to help us sustain the show, we'd be delighted if you could become a patron, as every little helps. You can find us over on patreon.com at the Life Fit Podcast. So, without further ado, I invite you now to sit back, relax, open up that heart of yours, and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the show, John Gray. How are you?
Hey, I'm very good, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today with us. I'm pretty sure you're going to blow our audience's minds, absolutely no doubt. But before we get into that, a little bit about yourself. You are the author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Would you like to start off by telling, I suppose, the audience about how you got started into all of that and the journey through writing the book and the journey of since you publish it, and maybe bring us right up to kind of where you are now and what you're doing?
Okay, I'll summarize my life in about 3 minutes.
Awesome. That's pretty good.
Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus has really become a big part of my life, but wasn't always that way. I'm 68 now, so if you go back 50 years, I was 18. And I was back in the 60s. I was a little bit of a hippie and liked love and romance and sex and getting high and all that stuff that we did in California at that time. And then every time you go up, you come crashing down. And around that time, the Beatles, super rock and roll band, we all know them, they went to India and they studied meditation. And they said, you can get high and not come down. And I had just been to Woodstock, and there was a big high event, but then afterwards I crashed. And around this time, I learned about meditation. So I became a very committed meditator. And I went off after I graduated from high school around that time. And as a meditator, I went off to live with the Maharishi. And I lived with him for 9 years. A big part of my life. I was his number one student. I was his personal assistant. They had my poster in their centers, 360 centers, 3,000 centers. They had my picture in there because they studied my brain function, because I was a master meditator, and I taught the teacher training courses for teachers of transcendental meditation. He's a great man for me, great teacher. I learned how to be very, very happy and centered and positive. I excelled at it. I'm a good meditator. Then what happened is my brother, who was bipolar, was not happy, and I tried teaching him meditation. It just didn't work for him. So I couldn't be so happy anymore if my brother was suffering. So I quit being with the Maharishi. I flew out to California to get a degree in psychology, became a psychologist, got a PhD in psychology, and became a counselor. And during that time, having been exposed to what they were teaching, I just disagreed with so much of what I was being taught. It was at a time back in the 70s and early 80s where really feminism was taking off in America, and they're trying to convince everybody that men and women weren't that different, and that the differences were just very minor, and everything was conditioning and culture. Now, certainly conditioning and culture plays a big role in how we think of ourselves and what we prefer, what we do, what our motivations are. But culture for thousands and thousands of years was created, not from stupidity, but from wisdom, how to support men best and how to support women best, how to support family best, how to support a culture to survive, to thrive. And those principles work to various degrees. I got to grow up in a family where I saw it working. My father was the traditional traditional provider. He had a good job. He made good money. He came home after World War II, and he's a soldier, and he provided for the family, and he didn't argue. He didn't fight. He seemed relatively happy. And my mother was very, very happy. She had 7 children, lived in a nice house in a safe neighborhood, and had someone to help her raise the children. I mean, she was an amazing woman. They're both very spiritual people, not so much religious, although they didn't, put religion down. They just had their spiritual practices. For example, when I was 3 years old, my dad taught me yoga. He was kind of like a mystic. And my mother had an Aquarian Age bookstore where she had all the new age ideas, spiritual books, all the various spiritual teachers around the world. She had a whole another house filled with books for people to borrow. It eventually became a store. So I had a unique background in Houston, Texas. Both my parents were Stanford graduates, very educated, but they're also, spiritual in a way of always looking for the truth, trying to be the most loving person they could be, have spiritual experiences, be giving to their children, unconditional love. So I was surrounded by all that growing up. So I saw that what my dad did primarily was be a good provider, not get angry at my mother, and basically a gentleman. And that was enough for my mother. Today, that's not enough. Okay, women today want much more. And I saw my mother being very happy because she had found a way. She had her spirituality, she had her children, she had her life, she had her friends, and she appreciated my dad, what he provided, and they had a lovely marriage. It would be not a marriage people would want today. It's more of the marriage where you're content with your partner. You had the passion in the beginning, the passion went away, and then you had a nice contentment and harmony. So I saw that, but I see today we want more. We want to experience that attraction. We want to experience the connection. We want to experience the joyfulness that we feel in the beginning of our relationships. And we're not able to do it. And is it possible? Many people think it's just not possible. They're dissatisfied. They move on. They create a string of relationships. So what I have done is for 34 years shown how you can do it. You can sustain the passion in a relationship, but it takes new relationship skills. And I didn't know all of this at the time. I just knew that they were teaching men and women should be the same. And I kept seeing in my counseling practice that was wrong. Women were constantly misinterpreting men's behavior, and men were constantly misinterpreting women's needs. One of the themes of Men Are From Mars is women need to talk about their feelings, and men will listen for a few minutes and then they'll want to solve it and fix it and tell her she shouldn't feel what she's feeling. And what I discovered is that women, if they can talk about what they're feeling without interruption, and somebody experiencing a higher level of understanding and validation, not that you necessarily agree, but that you can understand their pain and their frustration and their sadness and their anger, to understand, to be understood actually stimulates certain hormones in the body, whether it be a man or woman, but those hormones are estrogen and progesterone. And those hormones actually lower stress levels in women. Now, for men, what lowers stress levels is testosterone. And testosterone is produced when you solve problems. So women would be stressed. That then stresses the man a little. And so he wants to solve the problem and she wants to talk about it. And so that creates this never-ending conflict between men and women. So that was one of the big ideas of Men Are From Mars. And I saw it in counseling. I mean, how many men out there have experienced for 10 years, which is when I was a counselor, that's all I did, 10 years of listening to women complain about their husbands. And, I constantly would hear the same things over and over. But when men would come in, they had different complaints. Men would basically say, John, no matter what I do, it's never enough to make her happy. And rarely did I hear that from women. Women would say, I do this and I do this and I don't get back. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He should do this. Why is he that way? He doesn't love me anymore. He's not romantic. He's not affectionate. It's a long list of ways that he's not good enough. And of course, what that does is when a woman experiences that with a man and communicates that to him, it knocks his testosterone down. Now, testosterone is necessary for men to feel motivated, to have well-being, to have happiness, to feel love. Testosterone in a man needs to be 10 to 30 times higher, maybe even 40 times higher to fall in love. And for women, their estrogen, that's the female hormone, needs to be 10 times higher than a man in order to be stress-free. And to fall in love, it needs to become 20 times higher than a man. So what I realized later, once I understood all this, brain science and hormone science, is that all the ideas I wrote about in Men Are From Mars 25 years ago were actually biologically based. I was just making observations. I just saw that, men don't listen long enough and women complain too much. and the thing women complain about the most, they misinterpret. Men need space. Men need cave time. Men need time to do their own thing. They can't always be interacting with her. We love that, but then we need to come back to ourselves. We have to have our hobbies. We have to have our things we do that have nothing to do with her. So we have our work to make money. Then we have time to be intimate with her. But in between, often we need to be alone, doing what we like to do, either going to the pub, having a beer with some friends, talking with guys. It could be, working out in a gym. For me, it was meditation. I could always just go meditate. Meditation is one of the most solitary things you can do. And anytime you're solitary or you feel independent, you're doing it all yourself, testosterone gets produced. And whenever you're feeling like I depend on someone, estrogen gets produced. So when women are stressed, their estrogen levels are out of balance. So they want to have interaction with their partner. And when men are stressed, they need to rebuild their testosterone and take some alone time, do something on their own, maybe play soccer, watch a soccer game, something that doesn't involve personal intimacy. Then what happens is his testosterone goes up and then he wants to be close to her. But so women don't understand men, because men get close, we pull away, we get close, we pull away. We don't even notice the difference, but they do. And women, they go up and down. Some days they feel really happy and like nothing is wrong in their life. Next day, suddenly she's got all these problems and she's complaining. It's just, see, when stress comes up, women start thinking about all their problems. When their stress goes down, women forget their problems. So it's like we're kind of both, men and women are schizophrenic. Men can't live without them, but then we want to pull away. And then women are so happy, and then suddenly they're filled with complaints and their mind is overwhelmed and they're stressed out. And you kind of go, what happened? Well, I explain all that in my books. And now I have this is now 25 years after I wrote Men Are From Mars. So we're looking at 9 years as a monk, then being about 10 years, the first 10 years of my marriage with Bonnie, I figured all this out in our marriage. I was also counseling women every day. Then around 40 years old, I wrote Men Are From Mars. And basically for the last 20 years, I've been, promoting and teaching those ideas. I also teach other classes. I teach classes on wellness and health. I teach classes on meditation. But my books on relationship are so unique. And they've sold, millions and millions of copies in 100 different countries. So I teach a lot more about relationships, but I like teaching all these ideas. But relationships seems to be my specialty, particularly when it comes to gender differences between men and women. And it still seems to be so important because we've got this huge sort of opposition to that idea. It's still there. It's still in the American universities where they still teach these women that men are bad, men are rapists, men are terrible, and that the solution is men should be more like women. And that women shouldn't be like women. They should be like men. They should be independent and not. It's so confusing. There's all this gender confusion today.
Would you find much kind of trouble now from the social sciences crowd and the way their argument is that kind of man-hating argument and so on?
Yeah, it is a man-hating argument. And ironically, it's actually a woman-hating argument because women are denying the qualities of femininity that these women will often consider to be weakness. It's weak and unlovable to need someone, to depend on someone, to not do everything yourself. See, this is femininity. And the biology is the proof of it. They always say, "What's your proof?" kinds of common sense, basically, but also 10 years of counseling people, seeing the same problems come up in relationship after another, of men and women not understanding each other, thinking something's wrong with the other, as opposed to, they always say a poor workman complains about his tools, or whatever that is. I forget what that one is, but I just know that, when you don't know how to make relationships work, then what you do is you blame the other person rather than love the other person. We're just losing our ability to love. And, I have a lot of compassion for it too, because people aren't taught. The world has changed today. As soon as women start feeling independent, they start making testosterone. It's real simple. It's like a seesaw. As soon as they're making testosterone, they stop making estrogen or progesterone. These are the feel-good hormones for women. They're the love hormones. And as soon as women are making more testosterone, they can't make enough female hormones, and so their well-being goes out of balance. Now, the solution to that is not that women have to go back and, like my mother, who lived primarily, got her well-being out of the family and the children and the house and her little part-time job. That's old-fashioned. Now women want to run companies, join the army, do whatever they want to do, be independent, fine. But you're not going to be happy unless you also take time to support your female needs as well, your estrogen needs, your progesterone needs. Certain behaviors stimulate estrogen and progesterone, and they're the opposite behaviors to what produces testosterone. Independence produces testosterone. Interdependence and dependence and needing someone relationship produces estrogen. Now, we're guys. Of course, we need love and all that. We just need independence more. And women can be very independent, but they need intimacy more. And if they don't get it, they're unhappy and they don't realize how they're creating it themselves. They blame their partners as opposed to their partners are the fault. And it's not their partners. But when they stop loving their partners, they start it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you feel like, he's in his cave, he doesn't love me. So now when he comes out of his cave, instead of saying, hey, welcome back, he's here, you give him the cold shoulders like you've been ignored and you feel hurt that he's ignored you. Well, then he's going to go back into the cave because you just gave him a stressful message. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You say, he doesn't love me. Well, he can't love you if you keep thinking that. So, there's a lot of ways, and that's just one. There's so many different ways that women unknowingly sabotage their relationships and their own ability to be happy today. And ways men sabotage the relationship because women have changed, okay? And if you don't adapt to it, then you're going to have an unhappy woman. And if women don't adapt, they're going to have a man who gives up on them. Why bother trying? She doesn't know how to be happy.
I think a big issue today, whether it's in the social studies or whether it's in the bedroom, the boardroom, wherever, is people are looking at men and women as a man and a woman or, one or the other. But it's this, like, there's still a wholeness to it all. Like, surely in order for a man to do well, he has to realize a woman needs to be doing well for you to get along and vice versa. And that's kind of, I don't know, it's all around. It's like realizing the equality is there, but there is difference. I think that's a huge, huge thing.
Yeah, equality. A nice way of saying that's what you just said, and even a shorter way of saying it is equality doesn't mean sameness. Okay, you can have equal opportunity, equal respect, equal levels of appreciation and respect, but it doesn't mean you have to be the same. You don't have to be like me for me to esteem you, to respect you, to appreciate you. No, we need to recognize that what we're living in now is a world of diversity. And a huge part of diversity is recognizing that men and women are massively different. And then people from different cultures have differences which are cultured into them. But the biology is universal. So I teach in, over 20 different countries of large audiences of people who are responding to my message because they see, this is universal. I think one of the places I actually teach the most people these days is, besides America, is China. Actually, maybe more now in China. Because in China, they have a culture that really understands that men and women are different. That doesn't mean they're going to have good relationships. It's just that they don't try to be the same in order to solve those relationship problems. There will be huge challenges that we're all facing today, because in China, as well as everywhere in the world, women are becoming more independent. That's what civilization has brought about, is the opportunity for women to be more independent. And, men and women were interdependent in order to survive and to thrive. But once you can pretty much assure your survival and security, those are called your basic needs for survival and security. When you can fulfill those needs on your own, you don't need your partner for that. That means you're all independent. Then what happens is a new need emerges. And this is Maslow in 1940 discovered that there's a hierarchy of needs. If you're hungry, that comes first. If you're cold, you're not going to worry about somebody hurt your feelings. You're going to go for the blanket. Okay, so the fire. So there's something very primitive about our basic needs. Then when those needs are satisfied, and particularly when we can satisfy them without depending on someone, then a new need emerges. And the new need that's not clearly defined today, Maslow did his approach to it, but basically I make a very simple one. As soon as your basic physical needs are met, your emotional needs become just as strong as your physical needs. And your emotional needs are the need for intimacy and the needs for achievement. Okay, so women, having not felt the opportunity to express their masculine quality, they have a greater need for achievement. They feel that need, but they still have this feminine need for intimacy. And men, although they've always had this sort of need for achievement to feel recognized and successful, you have to do that in order to support your family. Men have a greater need for intimacy. But for men, that intimacy shows up as physical intimacy. So men basically want sex, okay? That's the bottom line. Not that men haven't always wanted sex, but here's the difference between the man who wants sex today and the caveman. The caveman, he just wants sex, and the woman complies. That's her job, is never to say no and comply. But today, most modern men, after being a monk, I taught classes on sex because that's all I thought about once I started having sex again. After 9 years of no sex and pure celibacy, no masturbation, nothing for 9 years. And I had lots of sex as a teenager. I love sex. I still love sex. But for 9 years, I sublimated that energy through meditation. But when I left, I started having lots of sex, lots of girlfriends, learned a lot about sex, and then started teaching seminars because, I learned so much having conversations with all these women about what makes their body feel good, what they liked and what they didn't like. So I thought, let's create workshops. That was my first workshops on my own. And I got a PhD in sexology too. So the gist of it, one of the sort of big one-liners, it was a surprise to people back then, maybe still to a few, but back then, is the most momentous, most wonderful experience for a man in sex is her orgasm. It's her fulfillment. It's her satisfaction. It's her happiness. Now, to the caveman, he didn't care at all. He didn't care at all. He had sex for himself. That's the caveman. That's the old-fashioned man. The modern man, this is how far we've come, and people don't recognize it. This is a huge leap, is that the man today, his greatest experience is feeling I succeeded and providing maximum fulfillment for my partner. That's his badge of honor. And that's a huge, huge shift. And that's called physical intimacy. And what's missing today, unfortunately, is education for men on how to achieve that in your marriage. And education for women is how to communicate and respond during sex and outside of sex so that you can achieve that. Now, biologically, once again, we come back to, for a woman to have a climax, we have to look at the biology. And it's basic. The biology is such that she needs to generate in her body 20 times more estrogen than a man. 20 times more estrogen. And that's double what her normal estrogen levels are. That's called romantic skills. That's called sharing skills. That's called being vulnerable. That's feeling enormous appreciation for a man. Will bump up those estrogen levels so that she can be orgasmic. And then when she's orgasmic, it causes his testosterone levels to double. I mean, this is like, we are so interrelated. Now, we all have a glimpse of that when we fall in love. Okay, so when we're single and we fall in love and we start having sex with a partner that we're in love with, the newness of the situation allows these hormones to double quite easily. because newness stimulates a lot of dopamine. But once that's the excitement brain chemical. But once the newness goes away, familiarity sets in, comfort sets in. That's serotonin produced in the brain, and that lowers dopamine. Now, that doesn't mean that he still can't have the high testosterone that allows him to experience sexual fulfillment, but he has to learn the skills to give her this high climax, and that will then double his testosterone. This is like, it's like, to me, understanding plumbing is just the basis of life. If you just get this hormonal balance, then you have a clarity on, what's just happened? What's going on in my marriage? Why am I no longer so interested in my wife anymore? Well, it's because she's not really interested in having sex with you. And if she's not interested in having sex with you, then you're not interested that much in having sex with her. But the secret here is that when women open up to men in sex, it's because they feel loved. And when a woman feels loved, then she can feel really sexual and enjoy sex. And that's the secret of men's fulfillment in sex, is when a woman enjoys it. So when a woman can enjoy sex,
the $1 million question.
Then what happens, I didn't hear what you said, but let me just finish that point and we'll come back. When she enjoys sex, that opens a man's heart more than anything. And it also raises his testosterone more than anything. But that's doubling it. To get it to double, you first have to have normal levels. And normal levels in a man has to come from his work and his life and not dependent on his wife. And then her happiness can double it. So what was it you just said? I didn't hear it.
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? How to make a woman happy in bed.
Well, yes. That's a good.
The timing was better earlier, I swear.
No, you're right. It was known. That's a $1 million question without a doubt. I'll tell you the $1 million phrase that women need to learn so that he can make you happy. It says, we do these interviews, but I've written books on this stuff. There's so much good material. Also, people don't like reading books these days. They like the videos and podcasts. They can also listen to this podcast. But I also, at my website, marsvenus.com, I have literally hundreds of videos and a really great course on sex. I also wrote a book on sex called Mars, Venus in the Bedroom. But these are skills that we need to learn, but women have to learn skills too. If you want a man to be interested in you and enjoy sex with you, and feel loving in sex, he does need to know to slow it down. He needs to kiss you first. A lot of men stop kissing their wives. You remember what you're like when you're teenagers or when you first fell in love? You kissed a long time. But we don't have the juice to do it, because when you have a high testosterone, you enjoy kissing for a long time and then kissing all the body parts and you're all over the place, and finally you just slip in and your body just sort of takes over. And it needs to last longer than a minute or two. It's a quickie. And I'm not against quickies sometimes, but, you should have all kinds of sex. But ultimately, for women to have the build up to raise their estrogen and double it, they need time. They need a lot of time feeling seen, heard, touched, feeling loved, being adored. These are all like key things. Men don't need that so much. So what we need is outside the bedroom, a lot of appreciation. And here's how women can increase a man's interest in you and his love for you is he needs to hear what you feel and think. And so when you're upset with him, those are usually the things you don't share. And if you do share, you do it in a way that lowers his testosterone. And if you don't share it, it also lowers his testosterone because you're constantly hiding yourself from him as opposed to being emotionally naked. Because that's what intimacy is. It's emotional nakedness. Physical intimacy is physical nakedness, connecting physically naked. Emotional intimacy is connecting emotionally naked. And it's the women who want the emotional intimacy more than the men. Although once a man experiences physical intimacy, then he also feels his need for emotional intimacy. We just have a reversal there. Men need to feel high testosterone levels, which sex is a super thing to do it, in order to become more vulnerable and more in touch with their feelings and their tenderness. Women need to feel the tenderness, and then they can get in touch with the strong sexual desire and feel even more dominant in the bedroom. Okay, that's where she's really wanting sex. And that's where you say, the $1 million question is how you get a woman to want sex. Well, you raise her estrogen, and this is proven, because whether you have good communication skills or not, generally speaking, when a woman ovulates, her estrogen levels will become twice as high, will become 20 times higher than a man to a certain extent if she's not stressed. It will naturally happen around that time. The good news for women is she can do this quite regularly if she feels safe in a relationship. And that's just dramatically lowers her stress to have orgasms on a regular basis. Now, they're not all going to be the same orgasms. There's times of the month where estrogen levels are naturally higher. And if you do something romantic on those days, then she has a chance of having these really out of the ballpark orgasms. But it's not good to grade them so much, but there is a reality, some days are prettier than others. There's no doubt about it, and some orgasms are better, but they're all loving. And that's the most important thing, is that sometimes sex, intercourse will last for, maybe 5 minutes or something. Sometimes it's going to last for 20 minutes. You go through 5 or 6 different positions in it. So you do like 3 minutes in one position, do 3 or 4 minutes in another, because they stimulate different points inside her vagina. And these points have now been scientifically verified and looked at. Is after clitoral stimulation, she has an orgasm there, then the G-spot, which is about 1.5 inches up her vagina, that will start to come out like a little erection. It's a little roughness, like a coin comes out, and that gets pressurized. Pressing on that causes another kind of orgasm. And then beyond that, another point comes out. That's the E-spot. And then that one, G-spot, E-spot, then sometimes the cervix spot, C-spot, the cervix in a woman's vagina after several orgasms or waves of orgasmic pleasure. The C-spot will actually go down. It will come down to touch the penis. Otherwise, it's sitting way up there. It will come down. And these are like magic things that most people don't know about because they have no education and the timing and the understanding that for any of this stuff to happen, she has to be happy with him. And he has to do little things to stimulate estrogen. So what happens is if I give my wife 48 roses, I think, well, that should produce a lot of estrogen. She'll go, oh, that's wonderful. Well, actually, it's 1 point of estrogen. Every act of love is 1 point of estrogen. So if I get 48 roses, the man's thinking that must be 48 points of estrogen. Nope, it's just 1. So give 1 rose, it's 1 point. Give her a hug, that's 1 point. Run to give her a hug. All the little things is what makes it work.
Huh. It's kind of funny because in order, if a man wants to get a woman high in estrogen, he needs to listen and be the ear, whereas all the man will want to do is solve the problems. If she comes back complaining about work or whatever, you want to be able to put to her in all the ways that, look, you can solve this, it's fine. Whereas the women don't want a solution. They just want you to hear them vent. Isn't that the...
Exactly. That's the key thing. That is the key thing to remember. Talk less if you're a man. Don't give solutions until she asks. And even after she asks, make her ask 3 times. Well, she'll say, well, what do you think I should do? He says, first thing should be, I don't know. Let's talk more about it. Yeah. Use that, because you have to get that the more you listen to her, the more she feels your attention, your interest, your connection to what she's going through, not what you're going through, what she's going through. Estrogen levels go up. Now, sometimes you have to prime the pump. Women are dry. Okay. You say, well, how's your day? She's, oh, nothing. Same old, same old. She's like a man, because women are becoming like men. They're not much to say. And then what happens is, in order for him to feel connected to her, because we want connection too, is we start talking more. So then you get the modern man now whose wife doesn't talk and he talks all the time. This is a huge turnoff to the hormones. That when you listen, you make testosterone. When you share and talk, if you're sharing feelings, you're going to produce estrogen. Now, like I'm talking all this, so you're an interviewer, you're talking. If you're just asking questions, you're producing testosterone. But if you're solving problems, you're also producing testosterone. So how do I listen and produce testosterone without solving problems? I have to keep in mind that I am solving the biggest problem, which is she needs to feel heard. She needs her estrogen to go up. I'm the man to do it. I know how to do it. I keep my mouth closed and I just ask questions and show interest. And she'll feel like, well, what do you think I should do? I really need to understand better. And then if you do suggest something, make it short. It's not the paradox here. This is what's so confusing is sometimes they do want your solution. Okay. And sometimes they're saying something because they want you to change. She'll say, oh, the house is a mess and this is going on. So what are you going to do about it? And then you say, well, help me understand it better. Tell me more details. Don't jump into, I'm not going to do this or I will do this or whatever. Get her to talk more. So let me give you a little of my experience to help with this for men, because it's hard to do. Nobody taught us to do this. We're firemen. Somebody says, fire, fire. Our job is to get that hose and put it out. Okay, so that's what we do. We're faster reaction. We're action oriented. Our testosterone goes up by solving problems. So we have to now know sometimes the problem that needs to be solved is our wives are too much on their male side, and there's nothing more powerful to bring a woman back to her female side than to simply let her talk and listen. But often women, when they talk, there's two types of talking. There's one where you're a little bit more vulnerable, another where you're just complaining about other people and you're not sharing how you feel. If you can get her to share how she feels when she talks, that's going to produce the estrogen. But to get to that place of what do I feel, you got to first talk about what happened. So, you ask a question, you're having trouble with that person at work. What happened today? Then she'll say, oh, they said this and this. Then you say, this isn't rocket science. It's real basic. There's three colors. That must have been so frustrating. Another one, it's like, oh, that must be so disappointing. I guess that's this. You were disappointed. I can relate to that. Or tell me your concerns. Tell me what you're worried about. These are easy things for people to talk about, but it brings the emotions into the conversation that she has. And then you say, help me understand it better. Tell me more. What else? And what else? What else? Get her to talk. Now, many women, because they're so on their male side, they have nothing to say. And so you have to prime the pump. That's one way to identify maybe what some feelings might be going on. Another way is she'll say, well, how was your day? Then what you do is you share, but don't share your feelings. Just share what happened. Share, oh, saw so-and-so, they said this, they said that, whatever. Don't be a victim. Don't complain. Don't whine. But do talk about very objectively what happened. The more you can be objective, the more she'll tend to go to feel safe because she's connecting with you, that you're not upset at her, that everything's safe. Then she can talk a little bit more on her side. But that's the key, is getting her to talk and making her feel safe to get there. So like you said, if guys are trying to interrupt, women don't feel safe. It's embarrassing to them. And so they just don't share and they hide all this stuff. And then they complain there's no intimacy when really she's the one who's not opening up. But there's reason she doesn't open up, because he interrupts. And sometimes he'll ridicule her, laugh at her, make fun of her. Like, well, that's ridiculous. Well, that's silly. Well, don't do that. Well, just quit. I wouldn't have that customer anyway. Whatever it might be, you giving her advice, it's embarrassing to her. She can figure it out, but she's revealing to you her process of getting to that solution, or she's just wanting to connect with you. She loves you. She wants to be connected to you. Connection creates estrogen that lowers her stress levels, just that you know what's going on inside of her. As a man, I don't need to share everything that's going on inside of me. But if, let's say I won a trophy, I want to tell her about that. I want to, it's like, look what I've done. Look what I did. I solved this problem today. This person said this. I did that. We like to talk about what we did. They need to talk about what they feel, but often they can't do it because they don't know how to do it, because their mothers never needed to do it, because their mothers were doing jobs all day long that stimulated estrogen. They weren't so masculine. But today, women have a greater need to go into this emotional intimacy. See me, touch me, hear me, be tender with me, make me feel safe. These are like qualities that women are needing, but don't always articulate clearly and don't know how to even get there. So if men can learn how to make it safe, women can start to open up. I promised you the $1 million phrase. We're kind of coming to the end of our interview. This is one to remember for the women, which is, if you're going to complain about something, don't. But let's say somebody steps on your foot. You got to let them know not to step on your foot. So you got to tell them, but you can't tell them if you're upset with them. If you're upset with them, they can't hear it. They'll just resist back. You want them to remember what you said and be open and make a change. Nothing wrong with that. So if you're upset, you talk to somebody else you're upset with till you relax. And then you realize you put everything in proportion, which is not that big of a deal. It's a little thing, but you can go to him with a tone of voice that it's a little thing. But you say, yesterday you didn't call, or yesterday you did this, or children needed this and you weren't there. And I was really upset. I talked to my friend and I just want to tell you what was going on inside of me, but it's not a big deal. This is not a big deal. That's the magic $1 million phrase right there. This is not a big deal. And then you can say, it only take me a few minutes. I want you to know what I go through. And then just think about it. You don't have to say anything. I prefer you not say anything. And then you take 3 to 4 minutes and tell them how you felt. I'm frustrated about this. I was disappointed about that. I thought you should have done this. I would have liked that. But it's not a big deal. Remember, the more you say to him, it's not a big deal, the more he'll listen to you. As soon as you make it a big deal, which emotions do, men get defensive. They're going to get defensive. They're not going to hear what you say. They're going to go into a stress reaction as opposed to remember, consider, and change small behaviors to make it better and better. And that's the secret. And then what women will sometimes say, well, what if it is a big deal? Well, if it is a big deal, then don't tell them either. Go to a therapist and have somebody else there who can maintain a calm while you make it a big deal. Because ultimately, one of my friends, he's not alive anymore, but he also had some really famous books, which are called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. It's amazing to me how people can make a blow up their problems. And then 5 years later, you look back and go, why did I get so upset over that? Why did I do that? But it takes us about 5 years to look back. Now, I saw this with women. This is why I saw this is women came in to my office in an hour. They came in stressed and unhappy, and I'd get them to express their emotions and feelings. Then they'd leave happy. They'd feel stress-free. They would love their husbands more. They love their life more. They love their children more. And nothing had changed in their life. You see, nothing has changed, and yet you have the power to go from feeling really stressed out about it to, oh, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm lucky about this. I got this. I got this. I got this. And so you start to see, it's the old thing of is the glass half empty or is it half full? And with women particularly, more so with women, when their estrogen levels are low, all they see is the glass is half empty. Mm-hmm. And when the estrogen levels start to rise, because they do the things that increase their estrogen, and sharing your feelings is one of those things. Being with women is another thing that will do it. Doing things you love to do, enjoy doing, will raise your estrogen. Anytime you're dependent on something outside yourself to make you happy or fulfilled or make you healthy, you're going to be making more estrogen. So, but the most powerful one is romance and intimacy, and then physical intimacy. Nothing more powerful for a woman to lower her stress levels than having authentic orgasms, and nothing more powerful for a man to keep his testosterone up than to know he can provide authentic orgasms to his wife. But it doesn't have to be every time. It just has to know you've done it. I don't have to write a best-selling book every month in order to feel successful. Life is about ups and downs. There are peak moments, but there should be several peak moments where a guy can experience providing this maximum fulfillment for her. And so when women are getting enough estrogen in their life, they're responsible for that, not him. Then they're able to see the glass as half full. And they're able to see the fullness without focusing on the negativity. And then from that place, you're now mature, healthy person. You're capable of now going higher. And that's by communicating with a man, loving a man. So he does more for you, gives more. You give more in response. Estrogen and testosterone in both of you begins to rise. And you have those very special, intimate moments that, I believe is God's gift to us, is to be able to do that. And it's because we've evolved to a higher level of civilization that we can experience these peak states, which Maslow used to talk about self-actualization. You would first fulfill your lower needs and then you could self-actualize. And I totally believe that. And I think that in a relationship, self-actualization is the ability to provide maximum and experience maximum fulfillment through intimacy. And that provides a foundation to what he called as self-actualization, where you're able to now express your potential in life. where you're now a 10. I remember in my life that I'd always rate myself an 8. I was so close, but I wasn't really fully there. And then I reached that point where I'm there. I'm who I am. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I feel good about myself. That's where you're a 10. And that's self-actualization. You have your creative talents that come through you. And that doesn't mean you're going to be the best at everything. No, it's just you got your thing you do really, really well, and you enjoy it, and it makes a difference. That's your mission in the world. And one of the ways to find that authentic self and what you're here for is to create the physical and emotional intimacy that can balance the masculine and feminine within yourself. And in that balanced place, you're able to come forth, often what many people call the flow state, where you're just able to flow and what's inside of you is able to fully come out in a way of service to others, whether it be a talent or action or words, whatever it might be.
I think that's really the most important thing to hit on, because even from hearing you before in other podcasts, and things like that, is even in the boardroom, again, bedroom, whatever. I think if our partners, whether they're a business partner, lover, whatever they are, if they're doing well, that gives us the chance to do well. And the truth of it is, right now is a perfect time because of coronavirus. The truth is, chaos will always come at us. Shit will always come at us. There will always be some
it's
problems.
always there.
But what's good to know?
How quickly can you wash it off?
Absolutely, yeah. But it's kind of good to know that, if we're going to go forward facing all of these challenges, I'd like to know that the people by my side are on their highest platform they can be. And I think that's a very important way to look at the world. And I think the more we can get more people looking at that and saying, right, my neighbor, my lover, my employee, my boss, my whatever they are, if we act towards them in a way that says, how can I get you to flourish in your own light, as opposed to in mine or in anyone else's? I think this kind of work goes hugely into that, not only for men to understand themselves, for women to understand themselves, but for us to understand each other, because we are we're the human. We're human before we're men or women. I think that's a quite often forgotten thing. And it goes back to what you were kind of, hitting at earlier as well, that, people are saying, people are getting into this battle of, they said this, they said that fucker did that fucker did that, and so on. And it's always an us versus them. But it's like, we're the same thing, and we have to go forward like the same thing. So I think this work is a beautiful way of dissecting that and saying to the other side, look, here's our weaknesses. Will you help us with them? Where are your weaknesses? We'll help you with them, and we'll help build your strengths.
So let me summarize what you just said and maybe add a little bit of my flame to it. And that is, I have a little class, actually. If you go to marsvenus.com, it's the first free seminar we provide. And it's how to get more in your relationships. And, sometimes we think loving is not just wanting more. There's nothing wrong with wanting more, but we have to learn how to get it. It's the nature of life for more. Nobody has a problem with wanting more in the business, wanting to make a bigger difference in the world, wanting to achieve more. But often in relationships, if you want more, we often think, what's wrong with you? You should be content and love what you have. And you can love what you have, but also want more. So in that context, how to get more in relationship? The first step is 4 steps. First step is to realize what you're doing that's not working. You only, want more when you see I'm not getting something. So wanting more is natural, and you should look at what you've been doing to get more. And if you're not getting more, then recognize that doesn't work. And usually in intimate relationships, even in all kinds of relationships, it's when you're trying to change somebody and they're not asking your help. Okay? It's like giving help when nobody's asking for it and they're not needing it. You think they need your help, but they're not asking for it. So that's an intrusion. So often we get angry at people. We're trying to manipulate them to change. We feel sad. It's also, we can be manipulating, disappointed. We're manipulating. We use our negative emotions to get people to change. So first thing we have to do is not do that. So recognize that doesn't work. Step 2 is what does work is when you're not getting what you want, you're often looking at the glass, which is empty. So now you have to fill up without depending on changing your partner, without depending on changing the external environment, how to find your happiness. So if I didn't change anything in my life right now, how could I be happy? So that's where this understanding of testosterone and estrogen comes in, is as my own unique person, what are the things that make me feel fulfilled without having to change my partner? That's very important. Now your stress levels are down. Now your soul can come forth to give more. When you're fulfilled, you only want to give more. But when you give more, particularly when it comes to men and women, what do men need most? What are men hungry for? What are women needing most? That's where the understanding of differences comes in as a great value. Is maybe I'm giving them what I would want, but not necessarily what they want. So give more and you'll bring out the best in your partner. That's step 3. And then step 4 is then when you're giving more to your partner and bringing out the best of them, then it's okay to ask for more. And when you ask for more or to ask for change, it's no longer a demand. It's not like saying you have to change for me to be happy. I'm already happy. But if you did this, it would make me happier. Mm-hmm. And that's a relationship which is based upon communication that doesn't demand change, but expresses a need with a preference. So this is what I'd like. It would make me happier. It would work better for me. This is my favorite thing. What's yours? It's more on a positive level of wanting more from a place of abundance rather than I want more from a place of if I don't get more, it's your fault. If I don't get more, I'm going to be an unhappy person. So, but you can always want more, but how to get there, you have to come from a place of fullness. So those are 4 steps to getting more in a relationship.
Really gratitude, isn't it? I mean, appreciating what's in front of you and leaving the rest be a bonus, isn't it?
Well, gratitude is getting back to that's the second level, okay, is stop looking at the negative, come back and look at the positive. Do the things that make you feel good. And expressing and writing out 3 gratitudes a day actually is shown scientifically to be really good. And that's helping to balance your hormones inside. Then go and give. Okay, I have so much, I have so much in my life. I'd feel guilty if I didn't give out more. It's such a pleasure to give more and give more and give more. And then where I need more, I can now ask for more from a place of having given more. Now I deserve and will open up to receive more.
I think, and definitely here in Ireland, there seems to be a stigma around receiving. I think people love to give in general. They seem to, because it's one of the best feelings we can get. But receiving stuff from other people, it seems to be a big block.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, I developed a habit last year, at some point around maybe about May last year, where I said I'd accept everything that was gifted to me.
That's beautiful.
Now whether I'd have to use it or not, but I could always pass it on or give it to someone else. So say I'd be a vegetarian, for example, and I might be in somebody's house and they might offer me something not quite to the diet, but I'd find a way to receive it without actually having to eat it. You know what I mean? So you're still giving the other person say for example a pair of shitty shoes that some person gives you and they say, oh, would you like them? You hate them, but you say, do you know what? I'll accept them. I can always give them to my neighbor or give them to somebody else, but I won't deny you the opportunity.
That's beautiful. That really is quite beautiful. And giving, we all like to give, okay? Because giving is the 3rd level. It's the high, first stop doing what doesn't work, give to yourself so you have something to give. The challenge of moving right to level 3, which is giving what other people need, it's very fulfilling. But if you're not also giving to yourself, and receiving the support that you have in your life, recognizing what you're grateful for. That's doing things that you enjoy, being happy without depending on changing people. And that is a state of gratitude. I don't have to change anything and I'm happy and fulfilled, kind of contentment. But it's not just contentment, because after that, you now add the joy of giving. And when you have the joy of giving and you feel grateful, then you can ask for more and you'll get it. You'll get it, and you'll get it in small increments. You don't need that much more. Always a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more.
And whether that's energy in the quantum universe doing its magic, or whether it's the fact that generally when you're happier and have more of a buzz, you get more work done and you get more reward for it. It's definitely, I think that gratitude, the whole side to it is absolutely vital, because it opens your mind to all the simple possibilities around. Whereas when we're
just reminding ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, reminding ourselves.
It's incredibly powerful. So yeah, I mean, going on, because we're very much close about to wrap up. Your latest book is Beyond Mars and Venus, isn't that right?
That's correct. That's my baby. It's I've written 25 books, but this is 25 years later since I wrote Men Are From Mars, and it's really the update of Men Are From Mars. Men Are From Mars is a classic. Okay, everything's still there, but sometimes there's this role reversal where men feel like they relate more to some of the examples of Venus, and women definitely relate more to examples of Mars. And so what I do is clarify that and help them realize how to come back to feeling the female hormones, and for men the male hormones, so they don't get what we might call role reversal. Where he's more emotional and she's more detached. She's feeling overwhelmed with so much to do, and he's feeling kind of apathetic and unmotivated. She's complaining, and this happens. Women will complain we're not having sex, and the man will just not be interested anymore. And the irony is that she's really not saying I miss sex. I want to have sex. She's complaining that you're not wanting to have sex with me anymore, so I want to have sex. But actually, it's usually her estrogen's very low at that time too, because truly sexual fulfillment in a woman will increase sexual desire in a man. So if she's saying, oh, we're not having sex anymore, she's just the idea of how their relationship was when they were having sex, to feel his love and his attention, his affection. That's what she's missing, which that then allows her to feel her desire for sex. But the sexual desire in women is complicated because today, more so than ever, because today, as women are more independent, they don't make the hormones of sex like they used to. But they can with these new skills. So yeah, at marsvenus.com, I do have these free classes for people. And there's also a class on great sex, class on communication, class on getting more of what you want. They're there. Many of them are free. So we welcome you to come visit us.
Awesome. And I assume you've probably had a few events that have been canceled lately, have you?
Yes, I have a lot of all my events. I have a busy travel schedule, so I'm home quite a bit. It's a new experience. But I enjoy it,
What a time to be alive! The rug has well and truly been pulled under our feet. The whole thing is going crazy. But it's as we were probably mentioning earlier. I mean, the time we're in, Jesus, is a great time to have a conversation with the likes of yourself. Great time to get messages out there for people to sit in, listen, one, to each other to get your estrogen and testosterone levels right, but two, just even to expand knowledge on things like this. And I think the more your message can be heard with people and can resonate with people, and that they can use it to help themselves, then that can only be a good thing. So with that, I would like to extend my absolute gratitude to you for coming on. And I suppose now I'll give you the chance if you want to say any last goodbyes or any plugs or anything you'd like before you go.
No, I think we had a lovely time together, and I really appreciate being able to speak with you for Ireland. And it's nice. I've been to Ireland 3 times, so I enjoyed being there. I was talking to you. I'm looking out. We just had a nice rain, and it's springtime here, and it's very pretty green. And I remember how beautifully green Ireland is. And I just feel so bad.
Yeah, we've had a beautiful week of it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And if I can bring a little love to Ireland, I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to help.
You've absolutely helped in spades. Your ideas and everything are really, really profound. They've helped me personally, that's for sure. And I know many others that they have helped too. For anyone listening, I would hugely recommend to check out your TED Talk. I think that was absolutely awesome. I don't know, have you the title?
Oh, the one where I'm wearing the red shirt. It's the TED Talk where I'm wearing the red shirt. There's
really good. I thought it was a very funny watch as well. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, it's the funny side of me.
So look, I think we'll leave it there for today, and I will again talk to you very, very soon, I'm sure, and we'll I'll definitely be keeping a track on your work. Have you any other books even in the pipeline? Are you back onto the writing desk yet, or any other projects that maybe you haven't told anyone yet?
Well, I don't talk a lot about it, but my wife died a year and a half ago of cancer, and I'm still going through the grieving process. When I do my work, I feel fine, but I have the depths of despair. She spent half my life has been with her, and I love her very deeply, and she's still with me. And I go up and I go back down, and I come back with more love and more love and more love. So I'll grow through this. So I will write a book called How to Say Goodbye. I did write a book on grieving before. I've had many deaths in my life, but this is a more advanced stage when you've lived with somebody for 40 years and you've depended on them for so much and slept with them for 40 years. a different kind of loss. So I will write that book. And I want to write another book, which is called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by Bonnie Gray. And I'll say the new Mars, Venus, something like that. But it's adding to the original Men Are From Mars, giving lots of stories of what she taught me to develop those ideas. I have so many stories I tell in my talks that aren't really in that book about what she taught me and how she taught me and so forth, how about what women need and so forth. And so that will be a newer version of Men Are From Mars. And then I've got another book called Radiant Mind, which is my meditation book. I've been a master meditator for 50 years, and I've written a couple of books on meditation, but I've refined it down with my groups to creating a meditation that really easy for people to stay really interested in. And that's another book. I got a few books, already in my head, but it's a journey to write them. That's a whole nother story. And then one on sex. Okay. I have the book Mars, Venus in the Bedroom. And that I wrote 25 years ago and 22 years ago. But Bonnie and I, we explored advanced sexuality, but she never wanted me talking much about it because, she wanted to keep our private life private. So now I can sort of talk about it and not embarrass her. But there's I hinted at it in our talk today, but there's so many advanced techniques that we learned to keep the passion glorious and ecstatic as these special connections that you can have only through sex. And I'll write that book as well. Not sure what the title of that book will be, but so that's a whole another 5 or 6 years once I get healed. But right now, I'm really, my heart is broken. I can't really do much. So,
one, thank you for sharing. But I mean, I think the more time you can give yourself, that's all you can really do. Yeah, it's always a hard thing to come back, because I've seen you often speak about your wife and how glowing you do speak of her. And when I read the news, because it was only recently enough that I read it, I kind of got a bit of a pit in my stomach, and I felt for you, and I still do. So I mean, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And the fact that she's going to remain with you, writing these new books, giving the new perceptions, whether it's the more fun sex side or whether it's the grief side, that's something that's a gift, I think. And even though you're the one who has to suffer for it, thank you from even the bottom of my heart. But I'm pretty sure the audience as well, that's a real gift you're giving there, John. And yeah.
Well, what you just said touched me a lot. I want to thank you.
Well, yeah, you're going to keep with it. You are. You do too much good work not to come through this. And look, I mean, we often, it's not my first time getting into deep enough conversations on the show, but because I think nobody's alone in this. We've lost friends and parents and pets and lovers, and we all share that one thing in common, whether our skin is brown or we have a vagina or a penis, or we're tall or we're short or we're black or white, whatever it is. We share that. We share our vulnerability, and that's where we can get an insight into where we can grow most. And you just said there, I think, what way you're deciding to shape your creativity, even though you're going through the depth of despair. That is just such a great message. If people could just take half of that and let it help them through their grievance, that would be worth every bloody penny I put into trying to get this show together. So yeah, that's really, really special.
Well, thank you again. I felt touched by your understanding and kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I think we're good for today, are we? And it's hard to finish up on a note like that.
Oh no, it's a beautiful note. I mean, I just want to share. I will finish up on my note that so many sleepless nights and so much despair, and actually not wanting to live anymore because she was my life. Reflecting every night for many, many months, all the little mistakes, the little arguments that we'd have sometimes, and particularly in the early years, how I could have been a better husband. Today, I feel like I'm a better person having the opportunity to reflect and feel so much deep love. Sometimes we don't appreciate something till we lose it as much. Now, I did appreciate her, but I appreciate her even more so now. And every time I'm, cooking for myself, I get off the airplane, I'm driving home, and I'm rushing, and I go, "Why am I driving so fast?" And I go, "Oh, I'm rushing home to see my wife. I miss her." And all those every little thing where I'm doing something that she was a part of, I miss her. And then I feel a sadness, and sometimes I feel a regret, but then I feel more love. And it's that feeling more love when we lose something that heals that wound of losing. It's very important to go through that feeling again and again and again, but never just feeling the pain, but to come back to feeling the love. And then from the love, you feel the gratitude, and you feel the commitment to grow from it and learn from it. And it's just one wave after another. So it's not as painful as it was before. It's sweet and it's tender, and my ability to love is growing from it. And so I can just feel so grateful for the time I had with her, and that expands into my life as it goes forward. But I'm taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, I mean, for people out there living their lives and they're thinking, oh, the way I look is important, the way this is important, what I said yesterday is important, all of that shit. It just goes to show how alive we are even when our body is gone. Do you know how interconnected we are with other people, with other schedules and other organizations and everything, how our light never stops shining even when we're gone. And clearly your wife is a glowing light in that regard. And I think people just,
Thank you.
let go with the bullshit, let go with the small things, let go with the, fuck it, I left a cup in the sink, or, who cares? The person keeps losing this or whatever. It doesn't matter. And I think it takes something very sad and very hard for us to realize that, but
it's our journey. It's our journey, and particularly right now, we're all getting to experience that journey on a deeper level. The world's changing, but change brings growth eventually.
Yeah, John, a beautiful, beautiful time with you. I really, really, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I shall hopefully chat to you again.
Thank you so much.
So that's all for today. I hope, like me, you enjoyed delving into the deeper matter with John and sharing his insights and his wisdom. And I would like to once again extend my gratitude to him and all his work, where you can find out more about on marsvenus.com. You can also find more about us on Instagram and Facebook at LifeFit Studios, or my personal page at jackohalloran_IE. And if you'd like to help us sustain the show here, we are over on patreon.com. Just search for the Life Fit Podcast. Until we meet again, stay safe out there, mind your fellow human, and go with love. Yours in health, Jack.